Q&A Friday. And today I am actually answering a question, which I'm just going to read it for you. I feel like crying most of the time after a month or so, and I do cry when I'm alone. And during these days, I don't want to work or do anything else. Do you know what that is? So I wanted first of all to address feeling like crying. Feeling like crying means there is some sadness inside of you, and this emotion didn't get, this energy of this emotion didn't get outlet yet. So it basically feels like I'm feeling like crying. So you feel like you want to cry, but why didn't you cry? There is that feeling like crying means there is this urge to cry, but it wasn't let out yet. The second part was when I'm alone, I cry. So that means this feeling like crying means there is an emotion of sadness, something that has been accumulated over a long period of time, but you don't let yourself cry. You cry when you are alone because you feel safer to do so when you are alone. So that means that probably when you're not alone, you have that sadness in you, and subconsciously or consciously, you don't feel like you can show that. So there is this wanting to cry, but there is this suppression of crying. Or you can say there is this wanting to outlet that sadness, but there is no safety for that to happen. So therefore, feeling like crying all the time. Then when you cry on your own, it all makes sense because that all sadness actually, it just needs to get out. And when you're on your own, you feel safe and you let that happen. So that's the first question in the two question type of setup. So I'll talk about this first. It could be that something has happened, and something must have happened to trigger that. However, the root cause of this is not that. The trigger is just something that has activated unresolved trauma. And the trigger that you have experienced when you started to have that feeling like crying all the time, it was just something that activated something that has not been resolved. The second part of the question was also, guys, if I'm talking too complicated, please let me know, because I sometimes lose my track in using words like trigger trauma. Trauma means basically something very challenging that has happened, that had emotional impact. It has like this emotional effect where it was really, really, really hard to do. And it was so hard to do that you remember it and you never kind of find a resolution for it. So that would be unresolved trauma, and whatever would be underneath of that suppressed emotion of sadness could have happened very early in a childhood, could have happened later in a childhood. Some traumas are actually accumulative. Accumulative means it's kind of like one thing happens, then it's like a cake. Imagine there is a cake with lots of layers. If you have only one layer, it's just one layer. It's easy to eat it. And then imagine if you have another layer and another layer and another layer and another layer and another layer. It's kind of like accumulated traumatic experiences. That means you have the whole cake. Cake might be positive, but anyways, trauma doesn't feel like a positive of experiences. And now to handle that whole thing all at once is too much. So there is outlet. So this long-term sadness or something, it's just letting out some of that out, letting out some of that stress out, letting out of that stress out. The second part in the second part of the question, you asked me, you also don't feel like working. So both of these things to me says that you have depression. So you are depressed. So crying, feeling of sadness or feeling like crying and not feeling like doing anything, to me is signs of depression. When I have experienced clinical depression after my mental exhaustion burnout, I was feeling for like months and months like crying. I was feeling, for example, I would be sitting in a bus. I would be sitting in a bus and I would be like, I feel like crying, but I can't because there are all of those people sitting around me. And to me, it felt like, okay, I don't want to do that. Somebody's going to ask me what's going on or something. Oh, it's just going to be embarrassing. So I didn't let myself do it. I don't know if I would be able to do it now either. Even though mentally I am much more comfortable with the fact that, okay, if somebody is crying, it's actually good. It's good because that means we are relieving, we letting out some of that tension. However, knowing how our society reacts to that is just like sometimes you just don't want to create that situation for yourself or for other people. So from my personal experience, I have this combination of like feeling like I want to cry all the time and then crying also and not really wanting to do anything when I have been experiencing depression. How strong is depression? There is a medical scale on which you can do the test and you can see if you are clinically depressed or you medium depressed or you have a light depression. I would not want to diagnose you, especially if I haven't spoken to you, but from your question, I'm guessing your depression would be at least somewhere. It wouldn't be like depression if you have that everlasting sadness. It's not just a mild depression. It's depression, proper depression. Yeah. Also, have a look at things like if you have lost interest, you don't want to go to work, so you're not motivated to go to work. Is there anything wrong with it? No, there is nothing wrong with it, especially if you feel the way you feel. So have a look if maybe in other areas of life, do you still want to eat foods the way you wanted to eat foods, for example? Do you want to see people? Do you want to interact with people? Do you want to do other things? Or all of that has been affected as well? If all of that has been affected, then I would say like 100% you have depression. And yeah, and what to do with it? Like what to do with it? My first recommendation for depression is, and mostly, I think most likely always will be, find somebody to talk to. Best if you have some person that you really trust, who is your friend or distant relative, who you feel safe with. Feeling safe with is the key thing. You can try talking to them, because I think in depression, one of the missing needs is to be able to have someone to witness that and hold space for you. If you don't have people like that, then it would be good to actually find some specialist, like a counselor or psychologist or a therapist. So I always think that with the depression, the best thing to do is treat it via like some type of talking therapy. Talking therapy doesn't have to be like a talking therapy from clinical psychologist or someone. Talking is therapy. When you are being heard, when you are being seen, when you are received the way you are, exactly how you feel, that is the therapy. So for me, that's already like a half job done. Then next thing to do would be, I guess this is my answer to everything, but that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Next thing to do would be actually look at the root cause of what is causing this depression. So your cues for what is causing it, it will be, you will look at the trigger point when this feeling like crying got activated. What happened there? How you felt like that? It could be that nothing directly happened to you. Maybe something happened in the world. Maybe something happened to somebody that you love or care about. And when you find that trigger point, then you will know, so in those, how these circumstances made me feel. I felt like, for example, nothing is, whatever I wanted to do is not gonna matter anymore. Let's say if something happened in the world, let's say travel restriction or something, and you had a dream that maybe you're gonna move somewhere and create your home somewhere. Maybe something that has happened made that impossible, or at least impossible in the foreseeable future. So without going into too many scenarios, have a look at your trigger point when you started to feel that way. What was happening then? Once you have a look at that trigger point and how you were feeling, you can actually check when was the first time that you were feeling that way. I am, one of the modalities that I use is the completion process, and it's a modality by Teal Swan. So if you actually want to do this investigation yourself, you can buy her book and you can do this process yourself, and you can go back into root cause and see what caused you trauma, which is coming up for resolution now. The good news is, if you are depressed now and you're feeling like that now, that means your life has come to the point where you are ready to resolve it. I've I've actually personally, I know sometimes things that happen are absolutely overwhelming, and it feels like we cannot do it on our own. And the truth is that I don't think we should be doing it on our own. However, I think if something has happened, especially something that made us feel very uncomfortable, depressed, sad, disempowered, triggered, agitated, disappointed, hopeless, helpless, um, anything that happened that kind of really put us down and activated something in us, especially if it's causing these feelings like crying, sadness, not wanting to go to work, means, like not really wanting to participate in whatever the job or activity you're doing in life. It means the time has come to resolve something which has not been resolved for a very long time. That means right now, from the higher perspective, you are strong enough and you are powerful enough to be able to do it. Once again, star asterisk, it doesn't mean that you have to do it on your own. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any other questions for this. And anybody who watched this on live on Facebook, also please let me know if this is something that you have experienced, or if this was helpful, and if you would like to see more content on this topic. I'm doing Q&As on Fridays. Last couple of weeks I was on a hiatus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Hiatus. Took like just time off to recalibrate, recharge, and realign myself. However, I do like doing this Q&A forum on Fridays on a regular basis, because then I feel like the answers that I can give you is something that you have questions about, specific questions about. And yeah, feel free to join in discussion and comment, or you can send me direct message if there is something that you don't want to put it under public view under this video. All right, guys, so I hope you have a nice day, and I wish you to have a beautiful Friday and the rest of your weekend. and I will see you on Monday. Bye bye.